The Pillars of Civilization, Sapiens, A Graphic History. Vol.2. Let's get started. Now, hi guys, and welcome to a new episode on the channel. And today we will be talking about Sapiens, A Graphic History, Vol.2, The Pillars of Civilization, by YUVAL Noah Harari. Let's get started. Now, before we start, let's backtrack a little bit. In our first adventure that we started in Volume 1, Sapiens, A Graphic History, The Birth of Humankind, is that there is a lot to be told about in this book. Sapiens is one of those nighty-tighty books that you could probably read and keep yourself awake at night because it's so interesting. But this one, what makes this different from this Sapiens graphic history book is that other than the color changes, it more talks about everything that we've seen in life, farming, agriculture, industry, as a bit useful in some ways, but sometimes not useful at all. And for that sake, let's just talk about how agriculture enslaved all of us. Now, the enslaving of the crops, as I said, that we will talk about in the next episode in the previous chapter, which is right now, right here, how the grains enslaved the humans. Now that that's happening, let's just see how well the Sapiens are going to hold on to this. And what was the reason of cultivating anyway? The reason for their cultivating was because someone seriously wanted to get endless supplies of food and get his children not to know hunger, but more tiredness. Their bodies weren't made for farming. The agricultural revolution may have been awesome, but their bodies weren't made for it, obviously. And then another final thing that we should pretty much talk about is that this is just not the end. The agricultural revolution has probably been one of the worst things that I've ever seen in my whole entire life. And right now, I have to agree that the agricultural revolution was a bit of a debunk. The hunter-gathering may have been very dangerous, but but farming is still worse, in my opinion, including the farmers. Agricultural revolution was a total scam. And right now, I'll teach you why it's a scam. Because our bodies weren't made for it. And it sort of made us being unable to just get streaked out by a bit of a little wheat. And after time traveling throughout this place, there are some things that's what we can see. We have to work the land, we have to make the bread and everything else. And so, why do we need to do this? I mean, when we domesticated animals, we learned to manipulate the animals themselves. But then, the animals sort of somehow figured out how to manipulate humans. And finally, YUVAL himself seems to just discredit the whole idea of this article being the best way to treat a chicken. And I'll say that it is a bit true. And let me show you the life of a farmer and a hunter-gatherer side by side. Now, so this is the farmer. And he's just locking up his doors and bringing a lot of wheat with him to go out to his cousin's house place, and his cousin is a hunter-gatherer, and he's like fed up with the farmer life. He hates it. So they hate it, and so when they finally found where they are, when they finally find where they are, they sort of chit chat about their lives. With a Mario farmer that exists, that is, and a Mario hunter-gatherer, actually a Luigi hunter-gatherer, and they both disagree. For the farmers, there's always religion. The men own the women, and then in the hunter-gatherers, well, no one owns anybody else, except I guess, yeah. But you do have to rely on some people too. For the farmer, like the man decides when to have a baby, and for the hunter-gatherer, the man doesn't even care how much they have, because the woman is the baby producer. He's not the boss of the baby producing machine. The woman is. And finally, we've come to one final conclusion to that farmer and hunter-gatherer thing. They are both good lifestyles. It doesn't really matter what you choose. I mean, if we chose the hunter-gatherer side, we wouldn't even be here today. We wouldn't even have YouTube. We wouldn't even have this. We wouldn't even have pimples. Okay, maybe pimples, but we wouldn't even have glass. Or would we? I'm not sure about that. We wouldn't even have these types of books. We wouldn't have smart people. We wouldn't have someone to be able to create a Dr. Fiction, I guess draw him in the mud on this. And so on and so on and so on and so on. So out of that's happened, let's talk about another thing about Sapiens. Empires, and how myths/fictional stories can affect their lives and unite them in whole. Back then, mythology was just a total scam, and then we found out that this mythological thing seemed to happen in all directions. Mythologies and stories, if people believe in all of them, united them, and especially the Greeks, and finally when they were able to unite all of them together, they were everything. They were able to create nations, they were able to create empires, somehow create empires. I have no idea how. They were able to create money, they were able to create joint stock companies, they could almost create everything. And even for that, that's a bit, wow, that's a lot. It's a lot. Now that we're at almost the end of this episode, I would like to say one final thing before I go. That's as long as we're here, nothing you own is yours. I mean, the only thing that gives you private property is that everyone agrees that it's your private property. But usually, just think of everyone, no matter what gender, race, or religious, or what religion they even believe in. Don't treat them by what they are. All men are pretty much equal. They should be treated equally, but biologically they are different. But maybe there's one thing wrong with this book. The souls, if souls even exist, may be all equal. Even if God doesn't exist, what's in their hearts are probably equal. Biologically, that's a different story. That's Sapiens, the Pillars of Civilization. And how a tiny piece of wheat ear enslaved all of our humans and brought us this society, which YUVAL calls a luxury strap. And that's it. If you want to read more on the subject, then I highly recommend the full guide of the Sapiens. It's not the comic book version though, it's like the smart version. But if you want a bit of a backtrack, you can read this as alone, or you can use it as a sequel for Volume 1. Either way, I highly recommend reading this one before this one, because it's so much more interesting to read it like that. See you again in the next episode. Shout out. Peace.